So Synology have U-turned their decision on third-party hard drive support on their platform. That's right, after what feels like an eternity, but I think is more realistically 4 to 5 months, Synology in DSM 7.3, an update coming out in the near future, is going to allow the use of unverified hard drives in DSMs. No longer in the 2025 series devices, the 925, the 1525, the 1825 plus, the RS24, all of those. You're no longer only restricted to using Synology branded drives. You're still going to be able to use WD, Seagate, Toshiba and more. We're still waiting for more information to the extent of this, for example, on the subject of M.2 NVMe's and storage pools. And ultimately, the big question here is, what was the point? Now, I'm going to say straight out the gate, I'm pleased about this. It is, whether it is contrition, whether it is the brand realising they done effed up, or simply that they've been leaned on by heavier parties, perhaps hard drive manufacturers, perhaps sales and distribution, for whatever reason it is, I'm still nonetheless pleased that Synology are now integrating. Well, I say that, it's not integrating anything, they're just rolling back a policy that shouldn't have been rolled out in the first place. However, I think we also have to be realistic. No one, I don't think anyone, not YouTube, not anywhere, has discussed and covered the topic of the hard drive support policy changes from this brand more than us. We have regularly covered this topic in the last more than 6 months. So I will say right now, with 6 months behind me, what was the point? Synology, I get it. It was to sell extra hard drives. I get it. It was for a more unified solution, but also a profit margin on the hard drives on a combined solution. And as you scale up towards enterprise, that, all of it, I get. But to wait this long to U-turn this policy, when all the mud and the slings and arrows of 6 months of online discourse, that's not going anywhere. This isn't going to erase all of that. I think some of the reviews are going to need to be revisited, and I may revisit some of my reviews and make before you buys updated versions that reflect the change on this policy. But let's not kid ourselves. This is a policy change from a brand that has changed policy over the years, and many of you in the comments are probably likely going to say, what's to stop them turning it round again? And there isn't anything. You are still going to be buying a solution that for the most part, its governance, its profile, its compatibility is still going to be controlled by the brand. And we're still yet to see how this is going to be rolled out in other areas of upgrades and features on their platform as well outside of these. Now, the other thing we have to talk about is in the last 6 months, 2 things. Number one, there's going to be users that purchase the older generation of devices. They purchased the older generation because they didn't want to be locked on this hard drive policy, and now almost certainly are going to feel like they have missed out on upgraded hardware options such as 2.5 gigabit Ethernet. And and upgraded CPUs, I should say, like the new 925 that's got a quad-core CPU instead of arriving with a dual-core. Things like that are going to bug users, thinking if they just held out a little bit longer, then this wouldn't have been a problem. Now, whether you think that's Synology's fault, I'm pretty certain they're going to say it's Synology's fault, I do think that's worthy of discussion. But the other thing to bear in mind are users that are going to have purchased a newer generation of devices, such as the 925, the 1525 and more, and they purchased Synology drives. And when they did purchase Synology drives, they did so because they felt their hands were a little tight and they had to. And that is going to be another group of users who are going to feel disappointed. The point I'm making here is this policy, as good as it is, I'm going to say, for new users and certainly those that were thinking of upgrading their unit to a newer generation Synology, it's still not going to, this policy's change is not going to be without its detractors and not without its pissed off users. And I haven't even got into the way this is being rolled out in DSM 7.3. We have to be also realistic that there are going to be users that, although maybe their primary NAS is not a little 4-bay, they may have something larger, like a larger scale SA system. They might have the large scale rack mount where they weren't that bothered about the hard drive change, but maybe they have got 2s and 4-bays in a multi-site operation that they oversee. Upgrading from DSM 7.2 into DSM 7.3, I know people that are still using DSM 6. I know people that are still running DSM 7 and 7.1. For them, upgrading to a new iteration of DSM with the potential removal of some features, the trimming and the change and the layout, and potentially just things that might break or not work in the interim, upgrading multiple systems to DSM 7.3 so they can enjoy the new drives, probably isn't going to be for them, and they may already have got a system like this up and running or thinking about buying a 2025 series of device, and they don't want to upgrade it to 7.3 until it's had a bit more time to work. Now, there's going to be some of you that have used modification like Dave Russell's hard drive database fix and used little tweaks and workarounds in order for them to enjoy using third-party drives, who are going to be wondering what this upgrade to DSM 7.3 will do, or more importantly, will break. The simple answer is we don't know. And the other thing to keep in mind is DSM 7.3, we've got no confirmation at the time of recording, and if it has been amended, I'll put it here on screen. But we still don't know if DSM 3 is going to roll out like a standard large-scale update, or it's going to be in beta for a while, which is not unusual for the brand to do. So in that case, a lot of users are going to be even less inclined to get one of these off the shelf and therefore run a potential beta software or an untested software. So all of these are points that add up to the bottom line that yes, I am pleased that Synology are U-turning this boat and making sure that people can use whatever frigging hard drives they want now. But the problem is, rolling it out in this fashion is not going to please everyone, and unfortunately the damage that this may have done to the brand may be pretty bloody insurmountable. And I think we're still going to be looking back at the last 6 months in the same way we look at some brands that have had ransomware attacks, some brands that have had security issues in the back end, brands that have had mishandling of security and mishandling of stability of their platform that get constantly referenced years and years later. So keep that in mind, Synology, that you are going to have to take your lumps and don't just pretend the last 6 months didn't happen. But what the hell do you guys think? Does this change things for you? Does this make you now more towards getting a Synology 2025 generation device if you are going to use your drives? Has the last 6 months put you off? Did you already invest in an alternate solution because of this and don't really want to go back? These are all really important questions that I want to hear from you about in the comments. There's also a link in the description to an article that will hopefully be up by now going through exactly how this is going to be rolled out. But thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.